Happy Friday and welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. My name is Emma and in this video I am convincing you to read books that I didn't like. I have always been very pro bad reviews. It's why I love doing Trash My TBR and often end up reading the books that got trashed. It's why I think my first or second video ever was called Books I Didn't Like But You Might. It's why I've been loving watching people's videos recently, like Jean for example made a video that was bad reviews that will make you want to read the book. Basically, I love bad reviews because I think they can speak straight to the heart of the exact perfect reader for that book. Authors, you should stop getting upset about bad reviews. They really do the Lord's work for you. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about a stack of books that I didn't really like, but I'm going to try and convince you to read them. And the sponsor of today's video is something that I actually have reviewed very highly, and that is the game Word Farm Adventure. So Word Farm Adventure is a new kind of puzzle game where you solve word puzzles fitting letters into Scrabble grids, but I've played games like that before where this one is different, is that each of those puzzles that you solve wins you points, and you can then use those points as part of your wider mission, which is renovating a farm. So the game has a whole storyline, you meet characters as you go along who tell you a bit more about your past. It's like a cross between a puzzle game and an adventure. The game is rated 5 stars on Google Play Store and Apple App Store, and one of those 5 stars was me. I've just started chapter 4, so I've got my little horse and parrot friends telling me what we're supposed to be doing. So I always play a few rounds of the puzzle game itself first. The first word that I'm seeing here is fart. There are also boosters that you can use. So for example, let's use this booster for this round, and it will reveal some of the letters for me if I'm finding a level a bit hard. And there are also boosters along the bottom that I can do if I get stuck. So for example, let's put some rockets on it. Woohoo! Smashed it! Okay, so once I've collected some shovels, let's build a fence. So for example, this is the farm that I built. I painted it that colour. The first time I painted it, I didn't have enough money, so I had a smaller selection of colours, and then the horse showed up and told me how bad a job I'd done, and it was very miserable. But now I painted it all cute and pretty, and I planted these little flowers, and I chose which harnesses to have and which saddles to have, and I think it's very cute. So I'm obsessed. If you want to be obsessed as well, click the link in my description to download the game for free. There are so many different locations within the game that you can travel to as you unlock more and more chapters. You can also play against other people, which is really cool, and come back every day to get daily rewards, and trust me, I have been. So that's Word Farm Adventure. I love it and think you will too, but now let's get on to some things that I didn't love but still hope you might. Starting with Blood Orange by Harriet Tyce. This was a book that I read recently. I actually vlogged my whole reading experience, so I'll link that below if you want to see how I reacted as I went along. And my reactions weren't good. I didn't enjoy this one. I found it too dark with a twist reveal at the end which I didn't see coming and which left me speechless. You will like this book if you don't mind being continuously shocked and appalled at how horrible and appalling the characters can be, and just keep being surprised with even further revelations of what they have been doing. I guessed some of the twists coming. I had some suspicions about some of the characters, but that ending, I did not know that was going to happen. I love dark books. For me personally, this one went just a little too dark in certain ways. The ending left me with a pretty bitter taste in my mouth, which is appropriate because it is called Blood Orange. I don't know if blood oranges are bitter. I don't think I've ever had one. It's got an unreliable narrator, which is a very popular trope, which I also used to love, but maybe have read a few too many of now, so that might have been another reason that I didn't love it. But I think a lot of people, this will speak straight to the dark hole inside them. And talking of dark books, there is the book Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, which I absolutely hated every second of reading because I am a complete loser apparently and was way too scared of all of the sections about drugs, blood and throwing up. This is a book that has had really, really rave reviews, and I do honestly think that it deserves them. It's a clever book. I read it with my friends as part of our book club, and that conversation made me admire the book even more because I think there's a lot that it was doing that's very clever. I was just too scarred by all of the way too graphic scenes, and so I felt stressed and panicky the whole time I was reading it, and not in a fun way for me. But I think you will love this one if you like dark, scary ass narrators, particularly when those scary ass narrators are women. That is something that's a little bit fun. If you don't mind slightly gruesome descriptions, if you don't mind reading about people taking drugs all night, something which gives me panic attacks just thinking about it. Again, if you like a narrator who you can't quite trust, it's not necessarily that she is lying to us. It might be that she doesn't know the truth of what's going on, what she has and hasn't done. If you're willing to step into that, I think there's a lot of people who will eat this one up. And also, if you know a lot about manga, I think if I knew more about manga, I would have understood some more of the references. I might as well stick with the dark, thrillery ones while I'm in that theme. So next is He Started It by Samantha Downing. I have a feeling that Kayla from Books and Lala absolutely loved this one, or she hated it, but I think she loved it. And I can really see why people would love it, because I did admire what it was doing and I admired the end. I just was left a little bit cold from it. This book is about a group of siblings going on a road trip that their kind of emotionally abusive grandfather, who has recently died, left as part of his will that they had to go on this road trip, reenacting a road trip that they all went on before as children in order to inherit any of his money. And so we follow them on this road trip. There are lots of twists and turns along the way, and I don't want to give spoilers, but when I say I really admired the ending, what I mean by that is the author chose to do the thing that almost never happens, the thing that you can usually be pretty sure won't happen. She chose to go there, and I admired that decision, but it also meant that I finished the book feeling a little frustrated and not having any closure, because once that kind of ending has happened, there's nowhere really to go to find out more. I think another reason why this one left me a little cold is all of the characters were so deeply unlikable, which is something that can really, really work for me. I actually love a deeply unlikable villainous narrator. So I can't quite put my finger on why this one was different, but I think I maybe have to relate to them in some way. Some subconscious, wicked part of me maybe has to relate to an evil character for me to enjoy them. I don't know if that's true before you go and lock me up in prison for, don't go through my videos and find everyone I've ever said I enjoyed the book about and then decide that I relate to them, because I'm just brainstorming here. But these characters I just didn't connect to, and wasn't quite sure why they were making the decisions they were making. But it is a fun, twisty-turny book. I did enjoy reading it the whole way through. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. It was just that I didn't find it as fun and memorable as Samantha Downing's other book, My Lovely Wife, which I really enjoyed. But I do definitely recommend reading this one if you want to see what I mean about the ending, because it was a choice. Then there's The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara. If you recognise that author name, it's because she is the author of A Little Life, which is a book that I absolutely adored and gave 5 stars to, even though it's an incredibly divisive book on BookTube. Some people absolutely hate it, some people call it torture porn, which I understand where they're coming from, but disagree with personally on a huge level. I found A Little Life to be a beautiful, hopeful, uplifting book to an extent. I mean, it's hideous. So many terrible things happen throughout A Little Life, and it will emotionally destroy anyone who tries to read it, but I still found a lot of beauty and joy in it, somehow. The People in the Trees, however, I disliked for all of the exact reasons that I've heard people criticise A Little Life for. And though I disagree with them when it comes to A Little Life, now suddenly I feel like I understand where they're coming from. This one's about a scientist who discovers a group of people who have abnormally long lifespans. They seem to be able to live forever, and if not forever, for hundreds of years. And it's about the way that he exploits this discovery and exploits these people. And he adopts a lot of children from this group of people. And we know right from the beginning of the book that one of these adopted children has accused him of sexual abuse. And the book is told from two perspectives. So we hear his diary about his travels and discovering this group of people, but it's also framed by the thoughts of another scientist, a younger scientist, who really, really admires him and refuses to believe the allegations of abuse, or thinks even if they're true, it doesn't matter because he's such a great mind. So they're two very, very unlikable characters, and I just found the whole thing so hideous to read. It's a very interesting book. I think that Hanya Yanagihara is a wonderful writer. I will definitely read anything else that she writes. So again, I do think that you may like this book. I actually know a lot of people who did really like this book because it's very interesting. It's tackling a lot of very interesting themes. There is a point that she is making with this book, and she makes it, and she makes it well. It was just an emotional reaction to this book that made me not like it, not a critical reaction. But my emotional reaction was to feel nauseous with how much I couldn't cope with it. Okay, moving to something very, very different. The next book I'm going to talk about is Jelly by Clare Rees. This was a strange book. I actually read this one for my Patreon book club back, I think it was our Christmas pick, and it was so strange. I had to apologize to all of my patrons for even choosing it and making them read it, but all of them said, or pretty much all of them said, I think there were a couple who DNF'd it. Everyone who didn't DNF it said that while it was weird, they were very, very glad that they read it. So that should convince you to give it a go as well. The reason I picked this one up is because it had such an intriguing premise, which is that a group of people are trapped on the back of a giant jellyfish. That's really it. We don't know why they're there. We don't know how long they've been there for. They're just trying to survive on the back of this giant jellyfish. And I was so intrigued and enticed by that premise, even though it sounds like nothing I would usually read. I just felt like, I need to know. Why are they on the back of a giant jellyfish? What does this mean? And unfortunately, the book didn't really answer that question. It felt more like the author had also thought, lol, that would be a weird premise for a book if they were stuck on the back of a giant jellyfish, but then didn't actually do any work in figuring out why they were there. We know it was some sort of climate disaster. It's set in some kind of dystopian future, but we don't really get many answers. That said, it is a funny and enjoyable book along the way. None of us who read it in the Patreon book club loved it, but we all had a lot to talk about, and we all had moments that had made us laugh, as well as moments that had really grossed us out or confused us why they were there, why that scene was in there. It's a YA book, which I hadn't actually realised when I picked it up, so regular readers of YA might like it more, and I do specifically think that teenagers would enjoy it more. I know YA readers can be a huge age range. I do think that teenagers might enjoy this one more, but it's been a long time since I was a teenager, so who even knows if that's true. And finally, we're changing key once again. I'm going to finish with a classic, and that is Anne of Avonlea by, what's her name? Who wrote Anne of Green Gables? L.M. Montgomery, I believe. Anne of Green Gables I absolutely adore. Anne of the Island, which is book number 3 in the series, I absolutely adore. Anne of Avonlea, which is the one in the middle of that, book number 2, I really, really didn't like. But for a lot of reasons that I think will make other people adore it. It is a very, very popular sequel. I found Anne of Avonlea to be too sweet. It was too cutesy and it involved too many children. And I don't really like children, which I know is a contradiction because I just said how much I loved Anne of Green Gables, and in that book, Anne herself is a child, but she's a hilarious child, and we're inside her head, so we're learning about her view of the world, which is really unique and very, very funny. She's a daydreamer to such an extent that she just can't really function. She's just always daydreaming, imagining herself into some different situation. I just adored her so much. Whereas in Anne of Avonlea, she is a little bit older and she is now looking after some younger children. And we then see those children from the outside. And I think what we're supposed to get from that is finding the children cute, which is something that a lot of people do. I have lots of friends who look at children and say, aren't they cute? Or listen to the weird things they say and say, aren't they cute? And for some reason, that part of my brain has never really clicked into place, and so I just did not enjoy reading this book about small children saying annoying things. Anne of the Island I then loved again because Anne is at that point a university student. The children are out of the picture and she gets to go and live in a fun university house with a group of gals, and she has a whole romance storyline, and I loved it. So it was really just that middle one that was very sweet and wholesome in a way that I just didn't need it to be. So I'd be really, really interested to know if any of those reviews did the trick for you. Are you intrigued? Are you convinced to go and buy any of those books based on me saying how much I hated them? I would love that. I really hope that I found the perfect reader for every single one of those books. And I also hope that you will go and download Word Farm Adventure. I am going to sit and play it right now.
Ran into you at the drugstore, you were picking up your prescription. It's funny 'cause